Thank you, Rebecca, for the great introduction and for the kind words. And good afternoon again. And so, yeah, thanks for coming and hanging around up till now. So, today we are going to talk about the world's oldest antelope, and my job is to make you fall in love with it. So I'll do my best. So the antelope I'm talking about is the Saiga, and I don't know, guys, how many of you are familiar with this animal? Quite a few. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I remember when we came here, like some years ago. My mom first of all, and then I joined as well. Almost no one knew about this animal, so I can see that the presentations are working. But yeah. But today I will try to not only to tell you about this animal, but also answer some of the questions that some of you might have about why you should help the wildlife and how. So for now, look at this picture. So this is the Saiga, the baby Saiga, and that's how they look during the summertime. But that's the same animal, but it doesn't look quite the same, but still it's the same animal, and that's how they turned out to look during the winter. And partly the reason is because this animal has been around for quite a while, since the Ice Age, to be precise, and that's over 2.5 million of years, so that's quite impressive. And the reason why this animal survived for so long is a number of incredible adaptations that they have to survive. For example, their famous huge nose. So why they need this huge nose? 2 reasons. So if you remember the first picture, the baby Saiga during the summer. So they live in a very dusty environment in the steppe. And because of that, they need to filter the air, the dusty air that comes in. So nose help them when they run quick, especially. But then during the winter time, it gets really cold. By really cold, I mean temperature like 58 degrees below zero, which is quite impressive. So they use their nose to heat up the air. And then they also run fast. They run fast with the speed of a car, about 40, no, actually, yeah, I think it's like 45 miles per hour, which is quite impressive. Last but not least, they have a very interesting birthing strategy. So when they calve, females usually gather in one place in the same time in winter during May, and they give birth at the same time, but also they give birth to 2 calves at a time every year, which is quite fast for quite a large animal like this. But this adaptation helped this very special animal to survive and bounce back despite all the odds. But today, I have to start on a sad note, given the recent news that happened to this animal. Very sadly, we had another massive die-off that happened. Some of you might have heard of this, the big one that happened a couple of years ago. Well, this year it repeated in another place. But as much as it is frustrating, I want to ask you to think critically about it, and let's try to find out the reason together. Because if we just get upset and we are caught in this kind of negative emotions, we cannot really do anything about it, and all we want to see and do is just not to see those sad news again. But we have to, we have to think, and we have to find creative solutions how to solve this problem. So I think many of you know Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective, who is a fictional character, but now there are so many movies around, so everyone should know it. So I would suggest that we use his methods of deduction to find out what kills saigas. From the little pieces, we need to create a bigger puzzle, like the bigger picture, to find out what happens, what kills the saigas. So let's treat it as a case study, and try to find out together. So let's all imagine that we're in Mongolia in the middle of a steppe, and Mongolia is located in the center. So there is Russia up and China down, so south and north. And Mongolia is one of 4 Saiga range states where Saigas inhabit these days. Someone is agree. Right. OK. And so that's what happened this year. Very sadly, starting from December of 2016, actually. And up till now, we lost 5,000 Saigas, which is a half of the population that inhabits that area, that Mongolian part. And the worst thing about it is that this population is very unique because it's a different subspecies of the Saigas, meaning that you can find this subspecies of the Saiga only in Mongolia. If this population is gone, we don't have this subspecies anymore. And I mean, it's hard to tell the difference when you look at the Saigas because they look quite similar, this subspecies and all the rest of the Saigas. The only difference is maybe the horns are a bit darker, but they have different genetics, so that's why they're classified as a separate species. And yet, we lost over 50% of the species of the animals in this population, and that's a frustrating news for us. But the good part of it is that we know what happened. It was a disease that spread from the livestock, and it's called sheep and goats plague. So basically what happened, there was interactions between livestock and wild animals, including the Saigas. So that's how the disease spread. And there are ways how to stop it, how to prevent it, actually. So if we vaccinate the livestock, and if we stop this interaction between them, that can help. So that's reversible. And if you remember, I told you that they bounce back quite quickly because they have those adaptations that help them to survive. So there is a hope, I would say. And I got to tell you that, I mean, I got many people coming up to me and asking about the die-off, and so many people confuse this case and another one that happened 2 years ago in another country, in Kazakhstan. So, I mean, those are 2 separate cases, so let's get it straight now. So the one that happened this year is the viral disease, and it spread from the livestock, and it's not related to the one that happened in this country. And this is the neighboring country and the second Saiga range state, Kazakhstan. And so what happened there was truly puzzling, and even up till now, although we kind of know what happened, it's still a big mystery. So to put it in a picture, that's what happened. And the scale is a lot larger. So if back then we talked about 5,000 Saigas, well, here we have over 200,000. So you see the difference. And if in that situation, we lost those animals over the period of few months, well, here, the animals drop dead overnight, just like that. So you can imagine, and this is just a little part of that. So, I mean, we tried to guess what happened. Not to guess, I mean, we tried to investigate, and like I said, like Sherlock Holmes, we started to look at the little details to find out what happened, because it was a big puzzle. That's a not normal thing to happen. Animals cannot die overnight in such large amounts in such a huge area. So we started looking at the environment and what can be the possible reason. So we thought about the toxins that can be found outside. Something like toxins that can be found in the soil, or maybe water, or grass, or vegetations, whatever. But we didn't find anything. That was confusing. It turned out that it wasn't toxins from the rocket fuel, because there was a series as well. And then we looked back at the history of the Saigas. there were other die-offs that happened before. It wasn't the first case, surely not, but not with the same kind of symptoms. So we were still puzzled, and we compared it to all the other cases that we could find in the history, and nothing was matching. We looked at the weather conditions, still no answer, and then the information went viral into the public, and people started making some explanations, guesses, and theories, and some of them believed that maybe those were aliens. I've seen quite a lot of comments and ideas that, yeah, that's the reason, but we decided to look further. And then some people suggested that maybe it was a sign of apocalypse, because as it turned out, during that night, the moon up there was full and unusually bloody, so that must be it, right? The full moon, the bloody moon, lots of animals are dead. Isn't it the reason? And yet, we decided to look for some more scientific proofs. So we decided to look farther for some evidence, etc. And, well, we found the reason, but it took us more than a year and a half, almost 2 years, actually. And as it turned out, it was a bacteria that lives in the bodies of the saigas in their respiratory tract, quite harmlessly, actually. So it's a pastoral bacteria that lives inside the saiga's body, normally almost any saiga, but something turned it to become toxic. And that was the key confusion for us, because we couldn't find out what it was. And the sad part of it was that it affected females and newborn babies, because this tragedy happened in May, and May is the time of the calving season. So May is the time when saigas give birth. And I mean, I've seen little saigas, and I just, every time when I've seen that, I imagined the little babies, you know, like when you see them, they have those huge eyes and very soft noses, and then you imagine this animal dead, and you see pictures like that. I mean, that's horrible feeling. And yeah, so, but all we could do is to keep investigating what was the reason, and as it turned out, it was a combination of 2 factors. So, well, first of all, it has to do with the physiological stress that this animal has to undergo during the giving birth, like during the calving, because saigas, as an animal, they are really prone to stress. And birthing is a very stressful event. So as it happens, and as they give birth, they have to go through a lot of stress. But also, at the same time, the weather conditions were not quite usual, so there was a little bit of difference. It was more rainy than it was before. So these 2 factors in combination, weather and physiological stress, those were 2 key things that turned the bacteria toxic. And as for the babies, well, they just drank infected milk from their mothers, and that's why they died as well. But at this point, you might think, well, it's also as bad, and it's not, because there are other things which are even worse, such as poaching. But you know what? Even with the die-offs, those are events that do not happen regularly, so that's not a typical threat for the saiga. So it means it's not something that we should anticipate all the time, fortunately, but poaching is way more continuous, is way more serious threat in the sense that we have to face it all the time. And here, I mean, at this point, you might also ask why people poach. And the reason is, like many other animals have to face it, is illegal trade that goes to countries that consume and use traditional Chinese medicine. So saiga horns, they're used as a part of some medical, like there are more than 60 well-known drugs that cite saiga horn as a component. So that's the reason of poaching, and that's way more serious threat. And now, looking at these shocking pictures, and by the way, I'm sorry for showing you so many negative things, but that's the reality, so I cannot just, show you nice pictures all the time. But still, you can ask, is there hope at all? And I should say yes, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here today. And, I mean, just have a look. Aren't they cute? I mean, you can't help but you want to protect this animal. So when we think about the hope and what can we do, even in the situations with the die-offs and poaching, well, the first thing that comes to mind is people. Because it's up to us. It's us people who have this power to either help an animal and the wildlife or destroy it. But we don't necessarily realize it all the time, how much power we have. And, well, I'm telling it to you because I have a background of a psychologist, so I'm not a biologist, and studying human behavior is my passion, and that's what I do for wildlife conservation, which is a slightly different angle, but I find it really helpful. So if you think about people, and it just keeps popping up, and I remember growing up, I realized that wildlife is more about people than it is about animals. Because, yeah, we are doing everything, I mean. And then the question arises, why should we care? So why should we bother to protect the wildlife? Why should we spend some time? Because usually, when we should do something to protect the animal, it means that we should spend some time volunteering. Because usually this work is not paid. It requires some time and commitment, which is a lot to ask, let's be honest. But if you think about it, volunteering improves the quality of your life. And I'm telling you this as a psychologist because there have been done tons of studies, tons of research about interaction with the wildlife, about helping some causes, some important causes that we can relate to. And what scientists found is that it can increase your life satisfaction. There is a number of things, such as positive emotions that you get from volunteering, from helping the animals, from making the change. It improves your health, obviously, when you spend some time outdoors. And, well, it can even lead to better relationship. And by the way, this is one of the teachers that we work with. It's not a stock image. It's, well, she's from Russia, which is another Saiga Range state, the southern part, which is called Kalmykia. And here we had our first ever wildlife academy for teachers. And I mean, you can see she was quite happy, like many other teachers that we had to interact with. But anyway, and I believe when we think about improving the quality of life, this is the main thing we should offer and ask from local communities and from people abroad, wherever, really, all kinds of communities. So when we do that, we should think about some key values that all of us have, such as equality, for example, because, and it can be anything. It can be related to gender equality. We have such a strong differences between men and female. Like females, usually women cannot, take active part in decision making, and that's what we try to change through our projects. Like we support women, for example, Saiga Craft. They create these beautiful bags, and they earn extra money so that they don't have to go. Their husbands, don't have to go and poach the animal anymore. But it can be also equality in terms of using the wild lands, the resources, the nature resources, as for us and for future generations, because quite often we steal it from the future generations, and we should think about that. Come on. Yep. Another key value is the sense of competence. Because, this feeling when you really want to be good at something that you're doing, and then you really feel satisfied when you go for it and you're doing something great and people are happy that you've done it. So that's what we support when we do our research projects. So we inspire people to do their projects, to make some difference for the wildlife through research and applied conservation, so that they can actually feel that they're making the difference. And then it's also the sense of unity and social support that kids, but not only kids, also their parents, receive during our events, such as kids camps and Saiga Day, which is a big celebration for us and a big festival. And last but not least is the emotion. That's how you feel when you make a difference. That's all about the connection that you establish between yourself and the animal that you try to protect, the wildlife, the habitat, whatever it is. I just think we shouldn't forget that it's all about this emotion that we have when we do what we do to protect the wildlife. Because unless we have this emotional connection, we don't feel like we have to, protect this animal or we have to protect this habitat, because we are quite, egoistic creatures as human beings. But once we have this connection, we kind of feel the need and urge to support something else apart from us, which is a great thing. So on this final note, I just want you to remember that it is important to find something that brings the meaning to your life. And this something can be wildlife, and it should be, because it's guaranteed that your life will become better once you find this love in your heart for the wildlife and start doing something. So I want to challenge all of you today, go out there and find your favorite animal, come to the table, ask how you can help, ask how you can volunteer, ask how, I don't know, maybe make some donation, maybe offer some support, but do it because you have the privilege of having all those amazing conservationists here today just for you. And you can ask them face to face, you can ask about their challenges, you can talk to them. That's amazing, not everyone has it. So please remember it and try your best to help. Thank you.